Today we have a very interesting case. It's about someone who's thinking about either buying a HDB or a condo, and it reads, Dear Seedly members, need your advice and wisdom on the following property conundrum that I find myself in. This obviously is posted in Seedly, and I'm actually using that to further elaborate on points that hopefully you can take away from this whole discussion with. The key part is over here, the TLDR. $1 million HDB or condo, which is more financially prudent given that one has depreciation, lease decay, yet space, versus one that has higher mortgages and higher cash down payment, but has a higher chance of holding value. Now let me pause it over there. And before I get into the nitty gritty of things, I always think that, crowdsourcing for feedback, I'm always not too sure if it's going to be helpful or will it cause more confusion, because someone who is staying in HDB will say, HDB is better. Someone who is staying in private might say private is better. If you ask property agent, I'm pretty sure they'll definitely say the private or the condo side is better. So if you ask 10 people, you get 10 different answers. And ultimately, it may not prevent you from your own buyer's remorse. So my suggestion is always to make a brave decision on what intuitively is more important for you, and live with the good and bad with whatever decision that comes as a consequence to it. But the key part about this TLDR is the question on, is there higher chance of holding value? Because if we scrutinize on the case itself, it's going to be between a HDB with 60 years remaining lease versus a condo that has 83 years remaining lease. So this concerns the Bala curve. If you haven't heard of Bala curve theory, let me flash it up for you to see. If you see this curve, it explains the leasehold value against freehold value, because freehold, technically the land belongs to you. So leasehold means 99, which means the lease will decay, eventually it gives back to government, or you need to top up money. If someone were to buy it at 99 year lease again, you got to top up to government side. So if we look at this chart, you realize that at year 60 remaining lease term, the value is about 80% of freehold land. And then with 30 years remaining lease term, it drops to 60% left, and by 15 years left is only 40%. And of course, when the lease expires, there is zero value, zero. So our eyes will gravitate towards the right hand side, correct? Falls off the cliff. Now I understand how you feel. If you see the house being worthless, nobody likes that. I understand it. But we also need to take into context. 30 years is a very, very long time. Between year 60 and year 30, we can't even remember what we did in our childhood days and stuff. And when we make decisions, forecasting 3 years forward looking is already hard enough. Most of the time, our biggest biases are regarding 3 months ago, what has happened, what kind of data we have seen. Property prices have gone up, definitely will go up, kind of thing. So we have a lot of recency bias, and forecasting or thinking 30 years and expecting us to live in one property forever is actually not that common. Older generation, yes, my mom stayed in her place for 30, 40, 50 years, kind of thing. In the younger generation, house changing is pretty usual. So let me zoom in for you to see specifically on the numbers on this graph, because I'm sure it's going to be a big revelation for you. And before I get there, let me smash your like button. As always, because it's taken our team hours to prepare content like this, to do the research for you so that I can present, to hopefully help you become a bit more savvy on what to look out for. Now, this is what I've discovered also. You see that we have in comparison a HDB, correct? That's 60 years remaining lease, and then a private that's 83 year remaining lease. I've boxed up for you to imagine if that person or you stays in this property for 10 years. Just 10 years. We don't forecast stay in it forever and ever. May not be the case. We do change houses. That's the reality of things. Lifestyle changes, need new school, need to downsize, etc. But changing house is not rare already. You see your neighbors rotating even. So this actually shows you what kind of decay does a lease actually really have in terms of impact. In that case, this was extracted on 99.co. You can Google search on it. But let me give you a quick answer to really debunk certain myths, because I realize advertisements always try to scare us into thinking that the lease 99 HDB is going to become zero, big problem, etc. and try to cause you to fear out and sell your HDB unnecessarily. So let me give you the actual numbers. On the right hand side, the red box, you'll see that if you bought a lease that's 60 years and you live there for 10 years, By right on the Bala curve usual theory, it will decay by 5.3% only. 10 years decay 5.3% only. Not the end of the world, right? How does that compare to the blue box over here? You realize that if you bought the lease at 83 years remaining, which is the condo case that he's thinking about, the decay will be 4.7%. Now 4.7% and 5.3%, not much of a difference, correct? You see the actuality number calculation. We're not talking about the tail right end where it dips off because it's really in the last few legs of it. When you buy with 60 years remaining lease and you buy with 83 remaining lease, you see with the numbers that it actually doesn't make such a big difference. So the question again is, has a higher chance of holding value? Now we'll go a bit deeper onto it, but let's move on with the case. Let's look at his life context. Realize that right now he's in his early 30s, married, currently living in a 2-bedroom rental and paying about $3,400. That rent is going to jump up to $4,800 per month for the same unit, and that's why he is motivated to start buying. He's also potentially planning for kids within the next 2 years. More description has suggested he's not preferring new launches. He's looking for resale. That's why resale HDB, resale condo, he can get it in a few months' time. And if you're thinking of upgrading or selling your home in the next few months, check out what I've done for myself. This video is actually sponsored by Oh My Home, and I'm actually happy to recommend them to you because I've seen firsthand as to how they run operations. Firstly, commission rates. Market practice is 2%, but it's actually negotiable. For Oh My Home, it's actually a flat 1%, so you don't actually need to even negotiate on that. It's just 1%. Very simple, very clean. But the marketing is actually done by a team rather than just an individual agent. So you can see from my listing, it's actually listed on the best platforms: Property Guru, SRX, and 99.co. And from my experience, this is a very, very, very big difference because if you want results, you need exposure. So if just like you're thinking of putting up your home for sale, check out my links below. You'll be matched with one of Oh My Home's outstanding agents for your area, and this was the process that I went through myself. They actually conduct an accurate financial calculation and run through a home valuation report for your property to help you determine the right price to sell at. And when everything is decided, you actually see their dedicated marketing team working on to get your property to the right audience. And as of right now, they've helped me get an offer already and we are close to completing it. So if you like updates for you, do subscribe and stay tuned. I'll be sharing with you more on this channel. So again, check out my links below and get in touch with Oh My Home today. He's described the exact HDB that he's looking for. This one at Tiong Bahru, 60-year remaining lease, 1.15 million asking price, 1,400 square feet. He explains that the total down payment and stuff is about $332,600, inclusive of office and down payment. There might be a renovation required between $75,000 to $100,000. That is pretty generous. It also depends on the state of the house as well as what kind of expectations. If you want a big fancy cabinet, then it could cost quite a bit. So again, renovation depends on expectation. Down payment plus renovation now will bring up total bills to $432,000, which is about 30% of his net worth. He's also concerned that HDB has a low degree of flexibility for MOP and ethnic quota issues. So the big question is whether this HDB is of good value for him or what to look out for. In any case, it looks like he's a very meticulous person. He's done all the numbers with, which is good. But I'd like to value add on 3 possible points, especially if you are also thinking about buying a house right now. What to consider if you're in similar shoes. Now, I've actually done some homework, going to dig up what property it could be, and I think I found possibly the match or a very close match. This property is indeed 60 years remaining lease, TOP at 1983, 1.15 million, 5-room HDB at Tiong Bahru area. So I might have hit jackpot. It could be really this flat that he is interested in. Over here, you realize that this flat is at the top floor. Still looks decent, but again, 1.15 million is the asking price. So the first point that I'd like to raise, if you're buying a house, are you comfortable negotiating yourself? If you have an agent representing you, then hopefully you have good rapport, there is good ethical practice, the agent represents you properly to negotiate, because that is a skill. That is what you pay agents for if they are representing you. If you can negotiate yourself, then that's good. You can buy house yourself. I bought my houses myself. So big question firstly is, are you comfortable negotiating with the seller's agent or the seller yourself? Because there are a few points I'd like to raise also. If you see a transaction history for that block in particular, you realize that August had a transaction at 1.05 million, correct? Albeit only 16th floor, whereas I think he's looking for the top floor one. So my suggestion also, if you are looking to negotiate house, ask yourself this question. What is a price that you are happy to walk away with? I repeat again, what is a price that you are happy to walk away with? The biggest problem for his case is quite obviously he can afford $2 million because that is what he's mentioned in the attempt to look at private property. Right? So that could potentially be his max budget, $2 million, which is way above this $1.15 million. Now, if the situation is different, his max is only $1 million, then no problem. The description or the confusion does not come in so big already. Because his maximum negotiations, hey, I only have 1 million, accept it or not, that's the max. If you can accept, I'll take it. But the problem is his budget is actually 2 million. So 1.15, he can potentially match it. That's what I think he already knows. That's why I asked this question. What price are you or is he willing to walk away if he offers at 1.05, which is matching of the previous high? Then maybe would he get close? Would someone bid 1.15 instead and close it? These are things that he needs to think about, or these are things that you need to think about when you are trying to offer for a house. That's the first. The second, a home is a home. What you see that's available is not identical. It's not like you go to buy handphone, one smartphone, one Samsung phone. This shop sells this price, that shop sells that price, but ultimately it's the same product. Homes, they are different. Do you like the facing? It's unique. Do you like the neighbors? It's unique. Is the completion time frame what you are comfortable with or so not? So no two homes are identical. They may be even on the same block, but the neighbors are different. The facing could be different. So there are things to think through. If you find a very, very good match, you might need to consider going very close to the asking price. This is something that I'd like to flag up for discussion also. The third point that I was thinking of looking through his case that may be applying to your situation also is, this is a 5-room HDB flat, 1,400 square feet, huge, old style house. Now the HDB 5 rooms are only 1,000 something or 1,100. So it's 1,400. There's a balcony, there's a lot of space. The living room is big. My question is, he's not married, without kids. Yes, he has mentioned that kids maybe in a few years' time, but as we know, we don't control such things. They are not here yet on the horizon. My big question is there a need to look for a 5-room flat? Ultimately, it opens up the discussion box. What if it's compared against a 4-room flat? Same price, 1.15 million, but no need renovation, super high floor, very, very new flat. Then these are things to consider. Do you really need a 5-room flat if you're just 2 people? So these are points to consider beyond just the numbers, because numbers, they don't tell you what you really need. If you buy a house that's 5-room and you don't have kids in the end, because kids, you can't control everything, then it's just 2 people in 5-room flat. For what? 3 extra bedrooms, you're going to lock up one or just put one as a gaming room. It's quite lame. So always think carefully. You can upgrade your house. You buy a small house, fits 2 people, hey, kids come about, then you might need to change the sizing and stuff. That's where, we realize newer generations tend to move houses a bit. So hopefully this answers some questions. And it's a good case study for HDB buying, but he's also mentioned some details about the private house that he's thinking about. Let's bring out the case. For the condos, his space requires minimum 1,002, so he's really asking for big space. Like what I flagged up, is the space really needing to be that big? That will cost $2 million. It also means that a 2-bedroom in a centrally located space area or one that's in Kembangan trumps condo. The mortgage should be $7,600 from his calculation of interest rate of 4.2%. Again, very meticulous. He's done all his homework in terms of numbers and affordability. Down payment is approximately $567,600, which is 100 plus K more than the HDB. Not just that, he expects renovation costs. Because, as we've discovered, Trump's condo is 17 years old, which means 83-year remaining lease. So there is wear and tear already. There is cost that needs to be sunk in to bring it up to speed. And with that, all the fees included will be about $617,600, which constitutes 45% of his net worth. Let me pause it over here. when we buy a house, the capital outlay is huge. You deplete your CPF OA, especially now when interest rates are so high. OA has very little value. You get 2.5% from there. You pay 4.2%, like what he's projecting. No point keeping OA. So, which means very likely you're going to wipe out your CPF OA. Next comes your cash. If you wipe out your cash fully, my first question is, how much cash is left behind? You need emergency cash, just in case you get retrenched and stuff, whatever the case is. Or there's certain emergencies in health. Then beyond how much cash is left behind, also, do you need to sacrifice your investment portfolios? Because if you bought stocks right now, it's a bad time. Prices of many US stocks are way below all-time high. Even for Singapore stocks, other than banks, some of them are trending below water quite a bit. Do you need to liquidate just to fund this? Because I don't think he's holding everything in cash also, or I don't think your situation is everything is in cash. There's some investments at some places, and if you're liquidating them at a loss just to fund for a house, it's a pity. So let's move on further for the case. Right now, he's conflicted between this HDB, which we've discovered 60-year remaining lease, 5-room very big HDB flat, 1.15 million asking, and a condo that is $2 million. When it comes to preserving wealth, just now he asked which has a chance of holding value a bit better, right? Let's bring back that question again, because it relates to him feeling stressed that 7,600 is a big portion of income. And first question is, which one of two is more financially wise? Fourth question is, should he use cash all in, buy the highest value condo instead of going for the HDB? Now, very interesting findings to show you. Maybe this would blow your mind. It serves to dispel certain approach that is common in market. Firstly, let's mention about the stress that he's feeling from 7,600 per month in terms of mortgage. That is painful. That is assuming 4.2% interest rate. What if interest rate goes up higher? That could become 8,000 or 8,600. So think that also very carefully for yourself. Be very prudent on it. Don't assume that interest rates are definitely going to come down because that may not be the case, and you don't want to feel that strain and you can't leave work because you have to just keep paying mortgage. Mortgage becomes your anchor to your happiness. Then that relates to the second part. Why is he so keen on taking higher value property? Maybe you've thought of it also before. Because the idea is that, the bigger the property, the higher the value. If it gains more, right? 2 million property gains 10%, that is 200,000 gain. Same with $1 million property, gain 10% is 100,000. So the bigger the property is in the up cycle, mathematically it's logical that you make more profits. But let me show you that is not necessarily the case. In any case, there's no mention also of loan costs, because you've taken a lot of loan with it. Even if it goes up, you may still have just repaid back some of your loans. Let me show you exact trends between the Trumps, which is what he's mentioned as his preferred condo in Kembangan, and this Tiong Bahru HDB flat. Take a guess as to the price trend, because this might just blow your mind. Let me flash it out for you to see. On the left, you see the Trumps 2-bedroom transaction around $1.89 million. What do you realize in the chart on the left? It's been wriggling in that 1,100. So prices have not gone up at all for the last 10 years. Surprising, correct? And you think back, now the condo is 17 years old with 83 remain lease. 10 years ago, it was only 7 years old. That's how young it was. On the right hand side, that is the 60-year remaining lease HDB. And you realize that the price trend has been significant, right? If you bought in 2013, you'll be in a big gain right now. Whereas on the left, the condo, even with the gains now, you have still not made money. Why so? Is it due to location? Is Tiong Bahru better than Kembangan? I don't know, or I don't have enough data to prove otherwise. It could be, but I don't think Kembangan is inferior in any way. The second, or rather what I'm leaning more towards is a price of a new launch inflated or not? Which means if you bought high and it starts to get out of favor, no longer a new launch, there's nobody is willing to pay higher price. Which means, on the other hand, a HDB has a lot of room, it's much better value. Could it be the case? That's why on the left, the Trump's property price hasn't appreciated much, whereas on the right, the Tiong Bahru 5-room has actually appreciated significantly. I don't know the real reason of why they're showing this, but my big point is don't assume it's necessarily better that you buy a newer condo versus an older HDB, because this data clearly shows that it may not be the case. So let's go back to some question that is asking. Should he continue to rent given the high interest rate and cooling measures? that is him thinking that cooling measures will mean prices will come down. But even if they do, it's a very long cycle. You need to keep paying rent for 1 or 2 more years, correct? I think I'd like to answer that quickly. If he's willing to settle down, they're married already. They're not in the dating phase, pre-ROM phase. They're married already. Why not settle down? We don't know if property prices would come down significantly or just stay flat or trend slightly upwards. We don't know. So if you have housing needs, it's time to buy a house. Don't rent already, especially now there's pressure to move out. Rent cost is escalating tremendously. So answering that question, it's time to buy. That's what my gut feeling would suggest, or if I were his brother, I'll be suggesting. If you are in this situation, I'll also be suggesting it to you. Then it becomes a matter of which house to buy. What fits your immediate needs. Then the third question is, given his high disposable income, can he afford to pay the higher mortgage? What if one of them loses jobs or wants to take a break? He can afford that mortgage, $7,600. Let's use the 335 formula again. First 3 stands for 30% of property price, and the 5 stands for 5 times of annual income. The house you purchase should not exceed more than 5 times of your annual income. The second 3 is the mortgage cost should be 30% of your combined take-home pay. That's way more prudent than TDSR, which is 55%. So if you assume you only use 30% of combined take-home pay for mortgage, to afford it comfortably at $7,600, the couple should be earning $25,333 per month. That is of the higher income bracket, definitely, but I think it fits his situation. But again, it reinforces if they're earning not at that level, then quite possibly they're paying more than 30% of their total income into mortgage. And that, in my opinion, is not prudent. Keep that formula in mind because apply to your situation when you're buying a house. Income higher or lower, apply that 30%. You realize that if you buy a house that is well within that budget, like what I do. For my house, my wife is able to afford that 30% within her income as part of the mortgage. So there is a lot of spare cash. There is ability to fit all the kids' needs because he's thinking about kids, correct? And if there's kids, there's increased costs. You cannot all in your budget. You're going to feel very tight. Kids would definitely require the expenses to step up through meals, through enrichments and stuff. If you're a parent, you kind of understand already. You realize that if you are keeping yourself with a lot of spare, you can still do investments. Now, the investment climate is getting favorable. Markets are down. If you keep spare cash, you don't all in your cash budget, you have monies to buy, especially in the market downturn. That compounds your wealth way faster. So again, my suggestion is use the 335 formula. Combined take-home pay, the mortgage cost should not be more than 30%. And once you stick to that, you realize that you are very prudent and you might have surplus that you can do investments, and you won't be so worried about what if one person wants to leave job or take a break because you have been prudent on mortgage. So as always, this is the big message. Be prudent with it. And if this message resonates with you, smash the like button and smash the subscribe, especially if I pick up cases that can help you in your financial journey. Because the biggest part about mortgage is you don't make the mistake first. You avoid it necessarily. You think through properly. Then you won't get shackles on you. Then you can progress in your retirement planning, everything with a lot of room to do things. With that, from here, hopefully there are some